Oh, I almost did this thing I did the other day, which is press the wrong button. Don't press the shiny candy-like button. How's it going, guys? Good to see you. Welcome back. Back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. Because it is. But how y'all doing? Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out with me every single day on the internets. We're live on Rockfin. Rockfin people are in the chat. Hello. Rockfin people, we're live on Callin. Waiting for the colonizers to file in here. And we're live on YouTube. Plenty of people on YouTube already. And good to see y'all. Let's see. Real quick. The very, very best ways, the most direct ways to support the show. By direct, I mean quick and without too much taxation on the back end. Is paypal.me/Kevin Sandblum, Venmo @Kevin Sandblum, Cash App @Red Llama Music, buymeacoffee.com/Blackbear News. These are all in the description box if y'all want to check those out. Hold on. All right. But anyways, good to see y'all. And all right. People coming in to call in too. Okay. Oh, geez. Just when you thought couldn't get any more depressing. It does. Let's see. Starting to get warm here, so starting to actually feel like summer here, which is good and bad at the same time. But it's getting a little warmer in the studio, so it's not too bad right now, but I've got a fan going, and we'll see. Hopefully I don't have any ice packs under my computer as of yet, so it hasn't reached that stage. But soon it will be the stage of ice packs under the computer, because it's the only way. My computer is very, very, very sensitive to heat, apparently. My poor computer, which actually is a great computer. It actually does a lot of work. It actually was a gift. Thank you, Osama. Still using this bad boy. But this computer is, yes, I need to get this garage installed. You're absolutely right, Creative Experiments, but I just, let's see. I'm going to have to pull the time to do that out of my butt, because I don't have any time to do that, and I don't have the money to pay somebody to do it right now. But eventually, that's the plan. I should do it. I should do it soon, actually. If there's a way I can open up some space to insulate my garage, at least the roof. There is absolutely no insulation, so the walls and the roof are just one layer of wood, and obviously the roof has roofing. But if I could just do the roof, even the roof would actually go a long way. I might be able to get by with just doing the roof and maybe not the walls so much. Do it for your instruments. You're right. Well, and also just, it's hard. I can't work. At some point, it gets too hot in here for the summer to actually get any work done. It gets very difficult. It has an insulated metal roof and it gets hot. Yeah. And the other problem is that I wouldn't be able to insulate. Well, I could insulate some of the door, but the door would be difficult to insulate. So, I mean, I think I'd start with the roof. All right, let's get into it. Ecological doom loops. Why ecosystem collapses may occur much sooner than later. And this is from Steve Austin, who says, we're a decade away. Blanket over garage door. I don't know. Well, here's the deal. My door, I actually cut windows. My old garage door was a regular old garage door, and I cut windows in it to let the light in. Actually, it's pretty nice. And I also cut a door in the garage door so that I didn't have to keep opening the garage door every time I went in and out, because that was super annoying. And it let all the, in the wintertime, it just lets the air zoom in, whether it's hot or cold. There was no way to regulate the temperature in here. So now I have this, I have a door cut in the garage door so I can close the door and I can actually heat the place a little bit in the wintertime without letting all the heat out whenever I go out. And there's windows in the door. And so now it's like bright and sunny and kind of cool in here. But how do I insulate this door? I have no idea. I don't know how I can insulate the door. I don't know. One thing at a time. All right. I'm going to get to it, I promise. And I'm saying that to myself, of course. Ecological doom loops. Why ecosystem collapses may occur much sooner than expected. Around the world, rainforests are becoming savanna or farmland. Savanna is drying out and turning into desert, and icy tundra is thawing. That's the permafrost now becoming permamelt. Indeed, scientific studies have now recorded regime shifts. Regime shifts like these in more than 20 different types of ecosystem where tipping points have been passed. Around the world, more than 20% of ecosystems are in danger of shifting or collapsing into something different. These collapses might happen sooner than you'd think. Humans are already putting ecosystems under pressure in many different ways, what we refer to as stresses. And when you combine these stresses with the increase in climate-driven extreme weather, the date these tipping points across could be brought forward by as much as 80%. Yeah, 80%. This means an ecosystem collapse that we might previously have expected to avoid until late this century could happen as soon as the next few decades. That's the gloomy conclusion of our latest research published in Nature Sustainability. Human population growth, increased economic demands. It's the economy, stupid. And greenhouse gas concentrations put pressures on ecosystems and landscapes to supply food and maintain key ecosystem services, such as clean water. The number of extreme climate events is also increasing and will only get worse. What really worries us is that climate extremes could hit already stressed ecosystems, which in turn transfer new or heightened stresses to some other ecosystem, and so on. This means one collapsing ecosystem could have a knock-on effect on neighboring ecosystems through successive feedback loops, an ecological doom loop scenario with catastrophic consequences. Oh, dang. How long until a collapse? In our new research, we wanted to get a sense of the amount of stress that ecosystems can take before collapsing. We did this using models, computer programs that simulate how an ecosystem will work in future and how it will react to changes in circumstance. We used two general ecological models representing forest and lake water quality, and two location-specific models representing the Chilika Lagoon fishery in the eastern Indian state of Odisha and Easter Island, Rapa Nui, in the Pacific Ocean. These latter two models both explicitly include interactions between human activities and the natural environment. The key characteristic of each model is the presence of feedback mechanisms which help to keep the system balanced and stable when stresses are sufficiently weak to be absorbed. For example, fishers on Lake Chilica tend to prefer catching adult fish while the fish stock is abundant. So long as enough adults are left to breed, this can be stable. However, when stresses can no longer be absorbed, the ecosystem abruptly passes a point of no return, the tipping point, and collapses. In Chilica, this might occur when fishers increase the catch of juvenile fish during shortages, which further undermines the renewal of the fish stock. We use the software to model more than 70,000 different simulations across all 4 models. The combinations of stress and extreme events brought forward the date of a predicted tipping point by between 30% and 80%. I mean, 30% is a lot, and 80% is a whole lot. This means an ecosystem predicted to collapse in the 2090s owing to the creeping rise of a single source of a stress, such as global temperatures, could, in a worst case scenario, collapse in the 2030s, once we factor in other issues like extreme rainfall, pollution, or a sudden spike in natural resource use. Importantly, around 15% of ecosystem collapses in our simulations occurred as a result of new stresses or extreme events, while the main stress was kept constant. In other words, even if we believe we're managing ecosystems sustainably by keeping the main stress levels constant, for example, by regulating fish catches, we had better keep an eye out for new stresses and extreme events, like what about marine heat waves, El Niños, and stuff like that. There are no ecological bailouts, meaning you can't print nature like you can print money, I think is what they're trying to say. We haven't figured out how to print nature yet. But oh my God, we'll try. Previous studies have suggested significant costs from going past tipping points in large ecosystems will kick in from the second half of this century onwards, but our findings suggest these costs could occur much sooner. We found the speed at which stress is applied is vital to understanding system collapse, which is probably relevant to non-ecological systems too. Indeed, the increased speed of both news coverage and mobile banking processes has recently been invoked as raising the risk of bank collapse, as the journalist Gillian Tett has observed. Interesting. Or interesting analogy. The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank provided one horrifying lesson. Come on. In how tech innovation can unexpectedly change finance, in this case by intensifying digital herding. Recent flash crashes offer another. However, these are probably a small foretaste of the future of viral feedback loops. But there are comparisons between ecological and economic systems. But there, the comparison between ecological and economic systems runs out. Banks can be saved as long as governments provide sufficient financial capital and bailouts. In contrast, no government can provide the immediate natural capital needed to restore a collapsed ecosystem. There is no way to restore collapsed ecosystems within any reasonable time frame. There are no ecological bailouts in the financial vernacular. We will just have to take a hit. Yeah. Well, that's not good, is it? That ain't so nice, is it? I mean, but plenty, this isn't new. These aren't new revelations. This is not new news. But that sure is a depressing article, isn't it? All right. Got a good crowd of people on Rockfin. Good crowd of people on Callin. Cool. Let's keep going. Let's see. Hold on. Just waiting for some things to open up here. Oh, I wanted to play this. This is a good little kind of Twitter video thread of Kevin Anderson also talking about what we're not doing to address the climate crisis. And I heard, Jimmy Dore did a video the other day about how, obviously, and this is true, the elite, whatever the elites want to do for climate change has nothing to do with solving climate change, which is true. He didn't necessarily. He kind of left the door open to climate change not being a thing, though, and I was a little bit whatever about that. But the true, because he said some things like what other people say, which are, well, if climate change is real, how come, how come you still can buy a house on the seashore? If climate change, well, you can, you can buy the house, but you might not be able to insure it now, as one insurance group has pulled out of Florida for just that reason. How come the wealthy are, and it's true, the elites who want to tell you that climate change is bad are flying all over the planet and spewing out carbon. That doesn't actually mean that it's not real. It means that industrial civilization has a mode in which it operates. And, right? It's hard to break out of that mode, even for elites, Only 8 thumbs up. Come on, guys. Thanks, Darlene. Everybody, please, whatever platform you're on, please like the video, like up the video. I don't know, share the video if you want to. I'm not here for the likes, but I appreciate the likes, and I think it helps the videos. Yeah, but people just have a hard time operating outside of the way that things operate, and that's that's true for everybody, the poor and the rich. You just don't, if everybody's driving, 13 SUV long motorcades, all the presidents and the very wealthy people, to wherever they're going. That's just how we do. That's just, that's how the standard operating procedure that, why would you do anything less? And then, you can't buy wildfire insurance too in California, right? That's true. State Farm not insuring houses in California as well. Anyways, yeah, and it's a good question, right? If you care about the climate, why are you still doing these things that imperil the climate? It does. Those are good questions. But I don't necessarily think that that's because it's not a real thing. I think it's just because people have money and they're like, I have this money and I'm just going to do whatever I want. I'm just a psychopathic nut job. And and that even goes for people who are not wealthy at all. They're like, well, I scraped together enough money to go on this cruise or on this vacation. I'm going to show you some funny videos about it. Well, it's probably not funny, but to me, it makes me chuckle. But when you're looking at the videos, I might be a little mean for chuckling at this video. But, right? Oh, I got a good job. I worked really hard, worked my whole life. I was scraping and struggling and scrapping and papping. And I finally got some money in my bank account. God dang it, I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to go take a cruise. I'm going to enjoy myself, right? That's just how people operate. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not real. It just means that it's hard for people to not operate in the way that it is expected of them. When in Rome. And as you know, it's very difficult to live outside of the system. It is really, really difficult to live outside of the system. It's really difficult to operate in a way that is, outside of the system is a little oddball. You start getting looks, and then you start getting questions, and then you start having people going, what's wrong with that guy? What's the matter? Why don't you, oh, what a bummer you are. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways. But Professor Kevin Anderson is addressing all of us in very clear words. And let's listen to Kevin Anderson. There's quite a few of these videos. I'm going to go through them all.
If we think about where we're heading, let's be clear. We are over 30 years, 32 years now, since the first major scientific report on climate change that came out in 1990. And so I think when we judge where we are heading, we have to say, well, what have we done since 1990? Well, we've watched emissions go up year after year after year. They're now over 60% higher per year than they were in 1990. So there is lots that you will hear, lots of rhetoric, lots of good words, lots of optimism about the future. But given we've known about this subject and apparently been working on it for 30 years, the trend line tells us that we are heading towards 3 to 4 degrees centigrade of warming across this century. An absolute climate catastrophe. It's a catastrophe for all species, including our own. And so that's the direction of travel. Now, that direction of travel does not have to continue. But the current trend line tells us that all we are doing so far is giving rhetoric and optimism and greenwash and not driving the levels of change that are necessary to stay within the 1.5 to 2 degrees framing of the Paris Agreement.
I don't know why you even brought that up, because we ain't doing that. I mean, I think he should know that.
Out of the atmosphere. When we think about 3 or 4 degrees centigrade, let's be clear, we have no historical precedent in human history for these sorts of temperature changes. And they're occurring overnight. And they don't just occur across this century. Firstly, we know that things like sea level rise will keep going for hundreds of years after that, and that we are absolutely locking in really high levels of sea level rise, maybe 7, 8 or more meters. So we may only across this century see 1 or 2 meters, which will be devastating for many of our coastal cities. And of course, most of the population of the world live near the coast. So that would be devastating for our existing communities. But we're locking in this devastation for centuries to come. But we're also changing very significantly how we will produce our food, whether we produce enough food, where will that food be produced? And that's because we're changing the complete weather patterns of our society, of our Earth. We're changing rainfall patterns, we're changing insect pollination of our crops. So all of this plays out, one sort of disaster after another. So any single one of them, we might think, oh, we can resolve, we can deal with that. But when you bring all of these together, occurring almost overnight, you're talking about the collapse of our modern society. You're talking about the collapse of most of our sort of emblematic ecosystems. So this is not a future that we should in any way we should be heading towards, and we should be doing everything we can to avoid it. The sad state of affairs is, though, that we're doing nothing to avoid it. There's plenty of talk, but no action. And what we have to bear in mind is the climate only responds to action. The physics responds to how much carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases we put in the atmosphere. So we can talk about efficiency, we can talk about green growth and all of this stuff. It's meaningless. What really matters is keeping the emissions out of the atmosphere. What we've seen in the last few years is that countries have made these various promises about what they're going to do about climate change. And a really optimistic reading of that, often given by people like the UN and some other climate academics, they say, oh, we're heading towards 2.7 degrees of warming. Well, first, let's be clear, 2.7 degrees of warming at a global average level is itself a disaster. I mean, these temperatures are not spread evenly around the planet. So that is like moving to a different planet. It's not the one that we live on today. But in addition to that, holding to 2.7 relies on a huge amount of optimism by the analysts and by the UN. It's not embedded in the commitments the governments are making. You look at those commitments and you extend them out beyond the time frame that they're normally talking about, which is only, say, to 2030. And then we're much more likely to be heading towards 3 or 4 degrees centigrade of warming. This 2.7 is optimistic because it is relying on future generations, our children and our grandchildren, to develop technologies that will remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Not small quantities of carbon dioxide, hundreds of billions of tons of carbon dioxide to be removed from the atmosphere and stored safely somewhere underground. That we're relying on these future generations to develop the technologies that we don't have today. We have a few pilot schemes and a few ideas and a few professors' minds. There is nothing out there of any scale that we're talking about. So we are having to imagine a future that's going to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere because we are running too scared of the political repercussions of actually driving the emissions out of the system today.
We'll keep going. There's 8 of these.
Emissions. Engineering can do a huge amount of things, but it cannot perform miracles. And yet a lot of models that we have, what we have done in those is embed all sorts of, sometimes real technologies, often pseudo-technologies, and then we hide behind them. They are a facade to avoid asking the difficult political and equity-based questions. And you need to really guard against that. When people are telling you, oh, we've got till 2050 to make these changes, and even then when they say 2050 and net zero is a real dangerous term in my view. And if you hear the language of net zero, I'd be very cautious about the optimism the person who's saying it actually has. Unpick it, reveal what's behind it, and you'll realize what they mean is not zero emissions, not net zero, not zero emissions. So I always call it net zero is Latin for kick the can down the road. And so you need to look at what are technologies hiding. And what they are often hiding is this deep inequality in emissions. Who are the people presiding over most of the emissions? And the way that they are avoiding asking those questions is to say we can do it with this technology or that technology in 2030, in 2040, in 2050, and of course well beyond that. Because a lot of these net zero models are assuming technologies in 2070 and 2090 and 2100. And these are technologies that say that don't really exist today. And so we're particularly many of us who work in the climate change realm, I think, are hiding behind this because we've done very well at the system, thank you. We have nice places to live. We have the benefit of travel, easy travel. We can afford the fuel. We're not in a cost of living crisis like many people are facing around the world today. So for us, life is good. Life is quite rosy. And we don't like to see ourselves as a part of the problem. And one of the ways around that is to delude ourselves, and in doing that, other people as well, that actually technology is the savior. Technology is part of the picture. It's a prerequisite. But it needs to go hand in hand with fundamental, profound social change by those of us who are responsible for the lion's share of the emissions.
We like to delude ourselves. Nobody wants to take responsibility for the emissions that they know all about, but they don't really want to do anything.
I have to be honest and say that, my judgment, my best guess, as someone who's worked on this for years, is that we are going to fail. We're going to go to 3 or 4 degrees centigrade of warming, and we'll have to live through or die from all of the repercussions that will have. That it is a terrible prospect, and one that I think we have to try everything we can to avoid. But the message of hope, if there's any thread of hope in this, is that it is a choice to fail. We have so far, repeatedly, I'm going to say we, what I mean is effectively our leaders, politically, academically, in the journalistic community, across the board, those people that have framed this debate have chosen actively to fail for 3 decades. And when they have breakfast with their own children, I hope they are thinking about what we have deliberately imposed upon their future. But as I say, it's a choice. And the great thing about a choice is we can choose a different way out of this. Now, whether we can still hold to 1.5, it looks incredibly unlikely to me. But incredibly unlikely doesn't mean to say that it's impossible. It is only impossible if we don't try. And so the real trick here is to try really hard.
I have questions about that one. I mean, the amount of, like physical momentum, right? It took to build up, the energy it took us to get us to 1.5 so quickly is not easily, right? It's a big, heavy train, or it's a very large ship and it's heading to port. And you are trying to think about something that, gathering enough people together or actions or whatever, enough something together to stop that, really huge ship heading right for the dock. Nope. You're not going to stop it unless what is it? What is the force that is going to stop that? And that is not, I'm sorry, Kevin Anderson. There's, when you talk about delusion, that is a little bit of delusion there. And I hate to say, I really like Kevin Anderson a lot. I think he's probably one of the best truth tellers. There's a couple more of these. He's telling the truth, but then he's saying stuff like, well, if we want to stay at 1.5 or 2, we're already, 1.5 is blown. It's done. It is a done deal. And 2 is very likely in the next, few years. Very likely. If we're going to talk about anything, I don't know, again, I think adaptation is, somehow putting the brakes on the train and hope that it stops a few miles down the road. But it's still going to go forward. The train is still going to go forward. That boat's going to hit the dock. Just, how hard is that boat going to hit? That's what we need to be talking about. All right, Joseph, how you doing? Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good.
I agree with everything you just said about Kevin Anderson, plus some.
Yeah.
And he is the closest thing to reality in a lot of ways.
Sure.
But I'd just like to add this real quick so you can, I don't want to take up the other stuff you want to do. Boundary conditions here is really what's missing. And on the base of it, time and the effects of material damage. And for that, cleverly, the industrial science side of this thing leaves out all pre-industrial effects of humanity pretty much. And for anyone wanting to understand it for themselves, you got to look to the records of when humans actually started affecting nature on the whole, and that's fire and agriculture.
Sure.
And there's two paths that lead you to the same conclusion. One would be the ice core record, which goes back about 700,000 years. And it shows a continual warming of the oceans over the time that humans have existed in an agricultural state. And if you look at the biocomplexity side of things, you'll see the same thing, a definite decline while humans are existing in the state of agriculture and fire. Those things are unquestionable as far as being correlated. To prove that humans did that, that are the cause of that, that's always going to be a tit-for-tat discussion depending on your level of disbelief. And as far as our effects go, every civilization with just physical mining and no oil being burned per se, other than lamps, we still managed to turn everything into a desert and our own extinction in that region for the most part, without remaining infrastructure. And then our side of things, once you introduce our industrial science, it comes down to a lengthy discussion of how they talk about CO2 and correlate everything going to space that they're not correlating to CO2. And we've gone on and on about that.
Right.
And it goes right back to the same tonnage. 100. You've done a show or two on 100 billion tons a year of heavy materials coming out of the ground, and nobody talking about the thermal mass effects of that. And it's the same as a gas,
Sure.
just not being talked about.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Was that a good call or a bad call?
That was a great call.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, man. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for taking my call.
No worries. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to be in a place where you're trying to just, where you're trying to tell people that you're not going to stop the train from crashing into, or from going off the tracks, or from, mowing down everything in its path. You're not going to stop it with a big group of people going, no, let's go stop the train. That train is going to go right through you. Yeah, it's hard. It's just hard to be in a space where you can, that, and you want, I see what I see where he's at, where Kevin Anderson is at, where he's like, well, we got to try to stop the train. And I agree with him on that. I fully agree with him on that. Or it's like being in an old school battle where you just got, you're just throwing bodies at the other side, and you're just hoping to overwhelm the other side with numbers and ferocity. So maybe we can overwhelm climate change with numbers and ferocity. I don't know. I was listening to somebody talking about, when they used to send people out. I mean, war is a horrible thing, but, and we and we're not at war with the earth. We're not at war with climate change. We're at war with ourselves, really. Anyways, whatever. I didn't want to get too sidetracked there. But he's right in the sense that, nothing will happen without the agency to change, to try and change it. So I'm not going to play any more videos. I don't think.
We've seen in the last
I think
few years
I think we got it.
is that countries have made these various.
We're failing, so. A couple things that were being said in the chat that were somebody was talking about UV. I think it was it Judy? Sorry if it was way back in the chat. Interesting observation. I don't know if I told you guys the story about the pool man that used to clean my sister's pool, and he dressed head to toe. He was it didn't matter how hot it was. Middle of summer. It was in Riverside where it gets really hot. He had every inch of his body covered. And I was like, and this was a few years ago. This is about 5 or 6 years ago. And I was like, and I saw that and I was like, huh. Clearly this person understands that maybe we have a UV situation. And here's interesting, what I've noted, and I mean, I'm aware of the UV, but I don't necessarily go overboard. I wear sunblock and wear hats and stuff, but I don't necessarily, I don't know if we're getting cooked from UV. I don't know that there's, I don't know that, saving yourself, I mean, I guess it's a good idea to save yourself, but how long can you save yourself from UV? I don't know. What I know, so there's construction going on next door. They're building They're building an addition to the house, and all of the construction workers are wearing long shirts, fully, long sleeve shirts and hoods, and it's hot. It's getting hot. They're not taking, it has been cool, and for a second I thought, oh, it's because it's cool. But as it gets hotter during the day and the sun comes up and it's getting warm outside, they're still wearing those things. And I was like, huh. Obviously, they are aware of the UV. Obviously, and it seemed, and obviously they're having discussions about it because everybody's wearing the long sleeve shirts. And I was like, huh, okay. And you don't even have to be aware of climate change or anything to understand that the UV is bad for you. But anyways, I wanted to say something about that and point that out, that's very interesting that construction workers are taking precautions against the UV by wearing full length, being fully clothed. I mean, their hands are exposed, but it's not like the pool man had gloves on, boots on, had a full facial mask on. Like there was no part of his skin that was exposed. I was like, this dude is serious about not getting exposed to the UV. But anyways, I just want to point that out because I think it's Dane Wigington goes out completely covered. Yeah, maybe I've been too cavalier about it, but maybe I need to start just wearing like full on head to toe clothing if I go out work in the yard. I think that might be the move. But on some levels, I'm a doomer at heart. I don't, and maybe this is not a good way to think, but I feel like if we're all going to get fried by UV, or if we've got a decade left, like, do I need, what am I saving myself for? I don't know, and I know that's probably not a great way to think. Probably not a good way to think. All right. Anyways, geez, golly, it's just depressing today. Brutal heat in Mexico. Tornado. There was a tornado in Mississippi. Floods in India. Oh, I want to show you this cruise video. I don't know why I'm laughing. This is terrible for me to laugh. I don't know. Every time I see this video, I start chuckling. I think it's because I hate cruises. I hate cruises. I hate the idea of cruises. I hate cruises. And I know people go on cruises and they're like, it was great. But I just, cruises are like the worst. So, but here is people. I'm sorry to laugh at this, but because it's kind of horrible. These people are in danger. It is comic. But there was a big storm on this cruise, and people are getting blown all over. Everything is getting blown all over the place. Okay. Anyways, I'm just going to play it.
Oh my God, that guy fell. Oh my God. Oh my God. Look at him. Oh my God, that guy fell. Oh my God. Get the kids. Get the kids. I just got the kids still in water. That was all still in water.
Okay. I do apologize for laughing at this. I mean, these people are holding on for dear life. It really, they're, I'm sure, scared to death. And if I was there, I'd probably be scared to death. But, but it was a little bit funny. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not going to laugh anymore. Oh my God. Yeah, it sucks. It's not great. I'm a terrible person. Yeah, I mean that would be a sucky place to be, right? On a cruise and you're just getting blown off the deck. I'd be like, get your butt inside. Get in a cabin. I wouldn't be there. No. And that's why I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I would not be on that cruise ship because I think cruise ships are stupid. But what if I was, what if I was a musician? What if I got hired? I don't like cruise ships, but I've always thought like, if somebody, they have these like, music cruises, right? Blues cruise. Right? If somebody's like, hey man, there's a bunch of bands, they're playing this, cruise full of musicians and you want to come for 2 weeks and we'll pay you handsomely. I'd be like, all right, sure. I probably would do that. I probably would. But there would be no other reason for me to go on a cruise unless somebody was paying me to be on that cruise. If somebody was paying me to be on the cruise, I might go on the cruise, but I would not go on a cruise. I would not pay money to be on a cruise. Anyways. I mean, it's kind of horrific. There's a lot of videos of people having a hard time with being on planes and being in a bunch of turbulence. Really, really horrific videos. And the video of people getting pelted with hail, I mean, on some levels it could be laughable, but probably, it was a very scary experience for them. So it's probably very wrong to laugh at that. It is very wrong. All right. I'm going to hell. Okay. I'm going to show just a couple more. I'm going to get off of, the climate for a second and talk about our corrupt financial situation. How corrupt is the United States? Did you guys hear about this story? The TD Ameritrade warehouse going up in flames. How corrupt is the United States? The day after the Justice Department launched an investigation into Wall Street short sellers, the day after, the largest document storage facility, TD Ameritrade Bartlett warehouse, went up in flames. What are the chances? What are the chances? They hauled the evidence away on fire in direct violation of OSHA safety requirements. Does that remind you of another time when they were hauling debris away from a site as quickly as they possibly could before it was even investigated or even, cool to the touch? Does that remind you of another incident? Huh. 60 hedge funds were to undergo investigations for manipulative short selling. Authorities concluded that a falling shelf took out the entire building's sprinkler system that was located on the roof. Yep. That's the official explanation, so let's just go with that. That's what authorities concluded. The facility was a newer facility outfitted with a state-of-the-art fire prevention technology. Hedge funds have been under heavy scrutiny from retail investors, more specifically I wonder why. More specifically from the AMC and GME. Remember the the AMC, GME, the GameStop thing that was happening on Robinhood a couple years ago? Specifically from the AMC and GME community after the meme stock frenzy early last year. Hedge funds have been able to suppress the share price of both these stocks through predatory short selling strategies. Wow. In a Bloomberg exclusive, Gary Gensler states 90 to 95% of retail market trades do not go through the lit exchange, but rather through dark pools. This happened on February 4th, 2022. Just like everything without government, absolutely nothing has come from the investigation. No charges, no stop to the blatant naked short selling taking place on a daily basis, robbing investors. The primary offender of naked shorting, of course, is Citadel, owned by Ken Griffin. Griffin is Ron DeSantis' mega donor and a WEF member. Okay. Did y'all knew that went on, that happened? I don't know. I didn't know that happened. Yeah, it is, the market is a risky place. Can be. And I wanted to play this. I bet you had no idea BlackRock and JP Morgan just set up a bank to rebuild Ukraine, which will cost approximately $411 billion. It will cost $411 billion to rebuild Ukraine using U.S. tech. How do they know this already? They know they're going to be rebuilding Ukraine already? That's interesting. And they're using U.S. tax dollars through a public seed fund. Do y'all want to listen to this for a second?
While we were all distracted by a submarine this week, BlackRock and JP Morgan were busy buying out Ukraine. Fortunately, our man Timothy James was keeping his eyes open. And his wise ass had the idea to say, what are we being distracted from right now?
While everyone's distracted, I was like, what has BlackRock and the other big banks been doing this entire week while no one's looking? BlackRock and JP Morgan helped set up Ukraine.
When I see a source or I see some information, I just go look it up for myself too, because it's 2023 and we should all be doing our own research. And it was pretty easy to find the first article that Timothy was referencing, and his analysis seems pretty spot on. Good thing we got reputable organizations like BlackRock and JP Morgan setting up our reconstruction bank to steer public seed capital into rebuilding projects. What's public seed capital? Government seed capital often gets things going. It is usually in the form of grants, which are financial awards that do not require repayment. Where would the government get money to do that kind of thing? I mean, shit, where does the government get all of its money? Oh, yeah. From taxes. Who pays taxes? Individuals. So, you're telling me that BlackRock and JP Morgan are setting up a bank to reconstruct Ukraine using tax money? Hold up. Oh, wait, it's all good, because that's going to attract hundreds of billions of dollars of private investment. The World Bank estimated in March that Ukraine would need $411 billion to rebuild after the war. Private investment would mean, corporations and companies and businesses investing in that reconstruction. It's a good thing they're all going to be giving so charitably to this reconstruction and not expecting any payment in return and not making any profits off of that. Because it'd be pretty fucked up to live in a world where wars got started for corporate profit. And the same people that benefited from bombing these places were also benefiting from rebuilding these places. Man, it sure is good they got that public seed money to get all this business started. These poor kids need homes. I just thank the Lord every day for this courageous soul helping to rebuild the world. Bless his soul. It's just so peaceful to look at. No, for real though. I mean, thank goodness that State Street is the top owner of Lockheed Martin, because otherwise BlackRock and Vanguard would be at the top of that list. I mean, if BlackRock and Vanguard owned a whole bunch of, military contractors and stuff, then they would probably be profiting off of war as well. Gosh, it sure is great to live in America where our government's looking out for peace and prosperity of the world.
Yeah. But BlackRock and Vanguard own each other. I own you. No, I own you. Timothy Martin says Black Bear needs a mega donor. Sure. Speaking of mega donors, the best way to support the show is paypal.me/Kevin Sandbloom, Venmo at Kevin Sandbloom, Cash App at Red Llama Music, buymeacoffee.com at Black Bear News. Those are the bestest and most directest ways to support the show. Appreciate you all that do. All right, William, I'm going to take this call real quick, and we'll wrap the show up.
Kev, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. So, yeah, Sam Bankman, of course, no charges. Yeah, well, did you ever think maybe, just maybe, the Simpsons had it again when they called out the submarine that was going to tank searching?
Oh, I saw that. I did see that clip. Yeah.
More predictive programming. Meanwhile, look over here at this submarine. Like, all these billionaires are that stupid to go down in that thing, really? And if they are, then so be it. But
so so what's the do you think it's a real story, or do you think it's not really verifiable, right? Oh, they say the submarine went down and sank. Oh, we couldn't. You know what's fun? Oh, this is what I heard about it, and I don't know. Okay, I'm just, I'm not speaking factually necessarily here, but what I heard was that Britain had. So first of all, when they said they didn't have a vehicle that could go down there and rescue them, I was like, no, absolutely not. That's absolutely false. Bullshit. Like, I call bullshit on that. So this thing, that this guy built on his own and was controlled by a Game Boy, they got down to look at the Titanic, but they don't have a way to get. I was just like, no, man, no. And I was talking to my friend about it the other night, and he was like, yeah, I knew somebody, or my dad's friend used to go down in the Marianas Trench in the 70s, right? They had something. What? Yeah, they had a vehicle that could go like way down back in the 70s. So I was like, yeah, this story that they didn't have a vehicle that could go down and get them. First of all, I was just like, oh, that absolutely is a big red flag there. Yeah. Like, no, I don't believe that. And then what I heard today was that Britain had a vehicle that could go and get them, or go and see if they could find them. And that the Biden administration declined their offer. I was like, okay, yeah. So then it just gets weird. After that, then the whole story is just like, all right. So somebody said we can go down there and get them, and you're like, no, it's fine. It's like, okay, sure.
Well, there's a couple of things there. Of course, while all that's going on, what's really happening in East Palestine and the NTSB hearings is completely covered up, right? Something that really matters that have on the terrestrial Earth to masses of people, not just in East Palestine. Okay? Right. And then you have the Sam Bankman thing that gets buried, not to mention the Hunter Biden thing, like the whitewash there and the little slap on the wrist he gets. So this is to me just more of the same theater to distract the masses to, hey, look over here, look at this important thing over here. Sure, like you're going to make a choice to go down that side with all your billions. That's carbon fiber. That's, like you said, controlled by a gay thing. I'm sorry. And if you're that dumb enough to do it, then, hey, I'm really sorry if it implodes, but it's not something I could care less about. You know what I mean? It's like, so what?
Right.
We got people in East Palestine. Oh, by the way, the latest status quo, 5 bombshells. I just put that up. That was on the Substack. I don't know if I know you're at the end of the show today, but just so you have it. You know what I mean? And maybe we could talk about it tomorrow.
Sure.
Hey, by the way, brother, your call-in episode from yesterday, I didn't see it posted in call-in yet.
Oh, I didn't post it. Sometimes I forget to, because you have to actually like manually press a button and go to post.
You have to edit and post.
Yeah, it doesn't post automatically. So if I don't automatically go do that right after the show, then I'll forget. And sometimes I forget for days. Sometimes I'll have shows like from the last like 3 days that I didn't actually post. But I'll post both shows today after the show.
I was like, dude, did I say something that he's
concerned
about getting deep shit over?
I noticed when I went to the call-in app, I noticed that I hadn't posted, and so I just forgot to do it. I was very busy yesterday, so I just
I know you want to go. I just want to add one more thing. I put calls into both Jim Jordan's offices where I get phone numbers asking for a grand jury congressional investigation into the you-know-what, which we can't talk about, and multiple things that we can't talk about, really.
I actually believe that will be happening soon. I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm positive of it.
I hope
There'll
so.
be some kind of. They'll be starting to roll out the inquiries pretty soon. I think. I think that should happen. And am I full of hopium about that? I don't know, but I actually think that that's a possibility. At
Well,
this
it's a
point,
layout.
at this point, there's been so much revealed, and there's too much out there,
Yeah.
and there's too much backpedaling by these people that are like, oh yeah, oh shoot, yeah, oh yeah, we kind of messed that one up. There's a lot of backpedaling, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were. So,
Well, two things. One, London Real has Dr. David Martin on YouTube where he's describing all the patents when he's testifying within the last, 6 weeks or so in front of the European Union Parliament. He's talking about all the patents in the 90s leading up to present on the you know what, and even on a chimeric, taking the cold virus and chimerically gain of functioning it into COVID. Like that's a dangerous thing to begin with.
well, and I forgot to actually talk about the CIA. Or it was the CIA. Hold on, I actually have a story about this. The U.S. just released a declassified report on COVID origins. So this is from the DNI. The DNI, along with that other article that we just talked about, the DNI just released a report about the origins being linked to Wuhan. So
Wow.
that they're saying, they are saying, they are actually admitting, there's a link. So I mean, I can't see how you can. I don't see how you can. I think they're trying to release it to distance themselves from implication or involvement. Right? Oh, yeah. Now yes, definitely. We think its possible origin was Wuhan, but how can you do that without not saying like, well, but there were financial ties between NIH and Peter Daszak and people. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do that without implicating yourself. So it's a weird thing to do, but they're doing it.
Did you hear about Dr. Andrew Huff, Eco Alliance? He got lost in the sauce where he's the whistleblower there, totally exposing what happened to Eco Alliance. Andrew Huff, who was, I think, VP, if I'm not mistaken. Just like Michael Yeadon, I know we can't talk about it, but the former VP of Pfizer. I mean, these are big people that, I know we can't talk here. So anyway,
let's try and talk about it tomorrow, and I'll switch over to Rockfin.
Yeah, there's a lot on YouTube, though. I think you're pretty good if you check out all the stuff on YouTube about this now.
I know. I'm just trying to be. I'm trying to be.
Yeah, sure.
I am trying to be a little bit. I don't know what the word is. Delicate, I guess. So.
Well, you're prudent, and that's wise.
Yeah,
right?
I really don't want any. I don't want any trouble. So it was.
Right.
All right, man. Well, thanks for calling in.
Say hi to Shalal and Joseph over there. Hey, boys, look forward to a group conversation maybe this Friday.
Word. Cool. Well, thanks, William.
Thank you.
I did get a super chat from Rich Diana. Thanks, man. Rich said Kevin Google works great for donating too. Just saying. That is true. Also, Rockfin, who has kicked me out during a live stream again. It's so weird. Why? I actually need to. Hopefully, the show is still going on Rockfin. Why, Rockfin? You can super ray me on Rockfin, or you can super chat me on Google. Are we still live? Where are we? I think we are. I think we're still live. Sorry, sorry guys, if something happened to All right, we're still going on Rockfin, so that's cool. But thanks everybody for hanging out. Rockfinners, YouTubers, and people on call-in. Thank you for calling in. Appreciate you. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow at the regular time of 12 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And until next time, peace.